When I tell people that I only spend 15 minutes per day in my garden, they usually want to know how that's possible, alright? I grow tons and tons of food in my backyard, and spending only 15 minutes per day in your garden really doesn't seem like that much time. So today I'm doing a bit of an experiment actually, and I'm going to be setting a stopwatch on my phone with 15 minutes on a timer so that you guys can see everything I do. I'll share with you, step by step, everything that I'm looking for, and like just kind of talking out loud my thought process on what I'm doing in those 15 minutes, alright? Also, if you guys are interested in growing tons and tons of food in very little time, alright, definitely check out my workshop. It is this Sunday, the 16th of October, 2022. I will leave the link in the description for you guys to sign up, but basically I'm covering, everything step by step that I do to grow 300 pounds of food in my backyard. Alright, so check that out. Alright, so here's my stopwatch, and go. Alright, so the first thing I do is I literally just take a glance over the garden and see if everything looks normal, alright? I'm going to go in depth as I walk through the garden, but first thing I do is just look and see if there's anything really out of place. One of the first things I notice is that this okra over here is having like some curling in it, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. In this case, I would just look it up. I haven't harvested any of this okra because this entire little space here is actually filled with tons of red ants, and I'm allergic to that. And so I'm seeing, some pest and some weird stuff going on with this okra. I'm not really super concerned with it right now, right? Like all of these, I saw some ants and stuff here. I'm not like super concerned with this right now just because I know that I'm going to be ripping it up. So for me, this is on my like don't touch for a while list. I just haven't actually come out here and harvested everything and like just gotten rid of it. So for right now, I'll take a pass over this. Now these green beans here, they're doing really well. They've gotten really tall, and I feel almost like these are not bush beans because they're growing little like runners all the way up here, which I think is rather odd. And I'm just gonna check over here. You can see, I don't know if you see like some little of the flies coming out, but nothing really looks like it's being eaten. There's some remnants of my diatomaceous earth that I put on here, and I have some flowers also. These are zinnias. Down here though, I am seeing, and I'm just gonna actually remove this leaf. This is what I'm looking for. Anything like pest, right? You got some leaf miners in here, and some kind of like, some like dried up kind of stuff. But definitely this is something I want to catch early, so I'm gonna get some neem oil and just put this on when I'm done. Now you can see the rest of them are doing well too. I'm just gonna make a mental note that some of the ones over here are growing like these really long tendril things, right? That's like normally a pole bean, so it's possible that maybe one of my pole bean seeds got in there. I'm not exactly sure how because I did seed save these from last season's round of bush beans, so I'm not exactly sure what happened there. I'm also seeing some of this leaf miner, right? So this is actually some baby kale, and this is actually the same as with those bush beans, so definitely going to get the neem oil and get some of these little leaves off, right? I'm going to pinch these and toss them so that they don't continue to spread everywhere. Everything looks pretty good. Some of this is actually from when the hurricane hit. Like some of these limbs just split off, and I had to cut some of them down, which is why you're seeing all of these like little baby leaves. A lot of these are just like regrowing themselves, so I'm not too worried about that. Some of these lower leaves, the same thing from when the hurricane passed through, and just basically going through and making sure all of my little seedlings are doing really well. Checking on the ones I just planted, right? You see a whole bunch of these ones. I just put them in the ground because the hurricane knocked about a whole bunch of them. But everything looks good so far. Nothing like too major besides the neem oil that I need to put down in here. And I'm gonna just clip off the rest of them. Some of my butternut squash are doing well. One of these did die, and I'm not exactly sure why. It's just kind of like sitting in the soil. Okay, so it's getting lots of water. These ones are doing really, really well, so that's strange. But then also over here, my lemon balm, my scallions are regrowing themselves, and then a volunteer plant, some of my mustard. These ones are okay, even though part of my oregano is actually drying up over here. That's fine because it was going to seed a bit ago, and you can see like the rest of it is doing really well. So this isn't something that I'm gonna try to fix. I'm just gonna leave it there, let it go to seed, and then it'll just become like organic matter. And everything else looks pretty good over here. The last garden bed my salad greens. I've actually been harvesting some of these, so doing pretty well. But yeah, all of this looks excellent so far. And then just a mental note for myself: in future I'm gonna have to come back and thin some of these. These are my little carrot babies, and I am going to thin some of these so I get better harvest of carrots. All right, so not something to do right now, but maybe in another 15-minute segment, that's one of my tasks when they get bigger. Okay, so for the next task is actually to just check on my irrigation system. You can see I have my drip lines in here, and as I'm going through, I'm probably looking for that at the same time as well, so you don't have to like redo this. But for example, this is one of my drip lines, and I noticed that it was in this little area with my butternut squash. These two are doing pretty well, but this one, I think maybe it got too much water. You can see like there's a very clear line right there. Actually, this is like nice and dry in the top layer, but all of this is really wet back here, and you can feel it. It's wet, the soil. So I think maybe it's getting a little bit too much water. I'm just gonna move this out of the way. I'll probably come and plant something else here, but if I noticed it earlier before this was actually dead, I would have tried to like get this away from the water line or the drip line for whatever reason, if I thought it was getting a little bit too much water. As far as the actual drip line is concerned, everything looks in place. Nothing looks like it's getting, you know, overwatered or not watered. But if I had a concern ever, I would just come in here and stick my hand or a finger into the soil. All right, and it's actually like kind of dry on the top, but in the soil it is nice and moist, so that is a good level of water. Now, if I needed to adjust the drip irrigation system at all, right, if I noticed there was way too much water or if the soil was really dry, I would come over here and just turn it until I got to set duration, and just adjust it either up or down depending on if it's too much or too little water. I don't need to do that right now, so I'll leave it alone, but that's how I would do it if I needed to. Okay, so next up is to harvest things. I don't have too much growing here, but what I am gonna do is harvest some of these herbs, all right? And I'm actually gonna get a few of the mustard greens for like a salad. So that is my next item on my list. We're still doing good on our time. Alright, so we've identified some issues like our leaf miners in the garden, which means I need to put down some pest prevention and some pest control in the form of neem oil, and I'm gonna go grab that, mix it up, and pour it in the garden. Okay, so now anywhere where I saw some of the leaf miner damage, I'm gonna start pouring. I think I saw some back here. And as you can see, I literally just pour it into the soil. I learned the hard way that if I come out here and spray the pests, or spray the plants, I mean, for pest control, it doesn't work as well as if I just pour it in the soil here. So anywhere where there's like a large cluster, I'm gonna go ahead and pour in. I don't see any over here, but I saw some. Where was it? Where my kale was. Here we go. So I'm gonna come in here and just kind of like douse this right into the soil, and that allows the plants to absorb through their roots all of the wonderful effects of neem oil, and basically it works much better than just spraying the plants and trying not to burn them and all of that. My kale, especially over here, gets really infested, and like salad greens and stuff. Usually the same thing over here with some of my butternut squash. So anywhere that I think could potentially get some of those leaf miners, I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, and there's a stick in the bed. I'm gonna come in here and do some neem oil application. All right, so we are at about 4 minutes here on my timer, if you guys can see that. All right, and so the last thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is just go through the motions as if I was like staking up any like bean plants or anything on the trellis. I don't have anything growing on the trellis yet, but I'm just gonna go through the motion as if I did, and that'll take me a few minutes. Alright, so that felt a little bit silly, but you guys get the point. Basically, if I had anything else to do, right, if I saw any cutworms or anything, I would go and just pick them off by hand. And the same thing if I wanted to add any diatomaceous earth. I did like spread it so you can see some of the white flakes and kind of powder all over the place, so that is, you know, still on there. I'm not going to reapply that because I don't want to do it too often. And then if I had anything else that I wanted to plant out, I would just stick that in the soil, but at this point pretty much I'm done planting things out, so that's not something I have to worry about. Let's check our little timer over here, and we still have a couple minutes going. All right, we have just over 2 minutes that if I wanted to, I could harvest more or I could put in something else, but basically that's it for my 15 minutes. Which means it is time to now sit and enjoy my cup of tea in the garden. Of course, there will always be more to do. That is everything I do on a daily basis, but if you guys want to check out my strategy on how I grow tons of food, how I max out my garden space, then I will leave that video on the screen here. Go and check that out, and I will see you guys in the next one.